My name is Mira Kesson, and for 31 years I have kept the watch at Greywater Point, above the basin we call the Sable Deep. I was not born to this post. I inherited it the way most of us on this coast inherit our work, from a grandmother who inherited it from hers, back along a line that reaches all the way to the tide that took our ancestors under. I want to tell you what waiting looks like when you do it for 15,000 years, not waiting the way a man waits for a bus, waiting the way stone waits for weather, waiting with a purpose passed down so many times it stopped being a memory and became a shape in the blood. The undertow concern did not invade us. That is the first thing people get wrong when they hear this story. They came the way a company sends an agent to collect on an old account, not the way an army comes to break a door. 15 millennia ago, a predecessor arm of the concern. We only ever learned its old name from the machine itself, and I will not give that name the dignity of repeating it. Descended into the basin below this point and built what they called a processing works. They took coastal people, hundreds of them, down into the dark, and they ran them through a device they called the loom. The loom did not kill. It did something worse. It hollowed a person from the inside, stripped will and memory, and left the body walking, breathing, obedient, stock, ready to be shipped out and put to work, wherever the concern needed hands that would never refuse an order and never ask a question. I have stood in the old processing chamber myself, as a girl, on a school trip every child on this coast still takes. The walls down there are lined with alloy, the color of a drowned coin, and there are alcoves cut into the rock in neat, even rows, each one sized for a person to stand upright in the dark for a very long time. It is a quiet place now, lit for tourists and school children, but the quiet has a weight to it. You feel the shape of what was done there, whether anyone explains it to you or not. Then, for reasons none of us have ever fully reconstructed, a war elsewhere, a market collapse, a change of ownership in whatever passed for their boardroom, they simply stopped coming back. They left the loom running on standby, left the processed men and women suspended in the cold dark of the basin like inventory in a warehouse nobody remembered leasing, and they went home. Our ancestors on the surface did not have warships. They did not have orbital platforms. What they had was grief, and grief that refused to become despair. They marked the basin. They built a watchpost above it, small and stubborn, and they told their children, something was taken from us here, and something may come back for it. Learn what they left behind. Do not destroy it out of fear. Understand it, so that when they return, they find out what patience actually builds. That is the whole of our history, condensed. 15,000 years of engineers, physicians, and coastal watchmen going down into that basin, generation after generation, dismantling the loom's compulsion architecture, piece by piece, not to weaponize it, though we could have, but to reverse it. My own great-great-grandmother was part of the team that finally cracked the suppression code embedded in the device's control matrix, the code that had been quietly keeping the last few hundred processed people in a kind of dreaming stasis for 10,000 years. When she and her team shut that code off, those men and women woke up. We call their descendants the kindled, here on this coast. They are citizens. They vote in our councils, captain our coastal patrol boats, teach in our schools. One of them, a woman named Odalise Farrow, is the officer who stands beside me at Greywater Point today, and her great-grandmother was, by any technical definition the concern would recognize, stock. We took what should have been our people's ruin and turned it into the spine of our defense grid. The loom's old suppression architecture, inverted, became the shielding lattice that now runs the length of this coast. The processing chambers became clean water reclamation plants. The transport shafts the concern had cut through the seabed to move their inventory became the tunnels our own coastal cruisers used to move unseen beneath the waves. Nothing we built was given to us. We built it out of the wreckage of what was done to us, on purpose, slowly, on the theory that the account might one day come due again. It came due on a gray, ordinary morning in early autumn. The sea over the sable deep went the wrong color first. A flat, oily calm that our instruments read as a mass displacement field settling into the water. The kind of stillness that has no business sitting over open ocean. Gulls went quiet. The tide gauges at the point logged a drawdown of nearly a meter in under a minute. Water pulling toward the basin as though something enormous beneath it had just taken a breath. Then their vessel surfaced, low, wide, unlovely, built for cargo and not for war, its hull scarred with the corrosion of a ship that had made this exact crossing many times before and expected to make it many times again. Barnacle growth on the old parts of the hull told me it had not been maintained the way a warship is maintained. It had been maintained the way a delivery truck is maintained, enough to keep running the same route one more time. 3 of them came ashore on the old landing shelf below the point, wearing pressure suits the color of wet slate, faceplates retracted once they cleared the waterline. Their skin, where it showed at the throat and wrists, had the sheen of something built to hold pressure rather than to feel weather, and their eyes moved across our shoreline with the flat, unhurried confidence of people checking a route they had walked 1,000 times. Their leader introduced herself. I use the word loosely, since I am not certain her species genders the way we do, as an account officer of the undertow concern, here to inventory and retrieve legacy assets from processing Site 9. She had a manifest, an actual manifest, on a slate, listing head counts and equipment tags 15,000 years old, as though she expected to find the numbers unchanged. I watched her scroll through it, and then look up, past me, past Odalise, up the slope at Greywater Point's defense towers, standing quiet and certain against the gray sky, and further out at the shape of one of our coastal cruisers' holding station, just beneath the surface, its shielding lattice throwing a faint shimmer across the water. Lattice built from her own company's stolen architecture, though she had no way of knowing that yet. I told her, plainly, that Site 9 had been decommissioned, that the assets on her manifest were citizens now, with names, with families, with a woman standing not 10 feet from her whose grandmother had been on that ledger. I told her the loom no longer ran on anyone's schedule but ours. She did not rage. I will give the concern this much. Whatever else they are accountants first, and accountants understand a closed account when they see one. What crossed her face instead was the particular stillness of someone recalculating a number they had trusted for a very long time, and finding it would never balance the way they had assumed. She looked at Odalise for a long moment. Odalise looked back at her without flinching and without cruelty, which took more discipline than anything I did that day. We did not fire on them. There was nothing to gain by it, and everything to lose in becoming, even for an afternoon, the kind of power that answers an old wrong with a new one. We escorted their vessel out past the shelf, past the range of our shore batteries, and I gave her the only warning I was authorized to give, that the account was closed permanently, that Earth kept its own ledgers now, and that any future visit to these waters would be read as a hostile inventory attempt, not a courtesy call. Their ship went under the horizon by evening. It has not come back, not in the 2 years since, though I do not expect the concern to let an unpaid debt rest forever, and neither does Odalise. What I keep coming back to, standing my watch these long nights at Greywater Point, is not the fear of them returning. It is the plain arithmetic of what 15,000 years of refusing to give up on the people the sea had taken actually bought us. It bought Odalise a grandmother restored to memory instead of dust. It bought this coast a shield, built from the very tool meant to enslave it. It bought an account officer a manifest she will never be able to close, and a lesson, however briefly it lands, that some debts are not owed to the ones who left them unpaid. They are owed to the ones who stayed, and waited, and built.